A lot of men aren't falling apart. They're still going to work, still paying the bills, still handling whatever gets put in front of them. And that's exactly why nobody realizes they're living in survival mode. Because somewhere along the way, we started confusing functioning with being okay. But pressure has a way of telling the truth. It shows up in your patience, your marriage, the way you speak to your children, the amount of time you sit in your truck before walking through the front door because you need 5 minutes where nobody asks anything from you. You may still be carrying the load. But here's the question most men avoid. Where is that load changing you? Because the pressure you refuse to acknowledge doesn't just disappear. Eventually, it starts choosing how you speak, how you love, how you escape, and who you become at home. Welcome back to the After Action Reset. I'm Steve Geiger. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a doctor. And I'm not here to give you another motivational speech about being stronger, working harder, or pushing through one more thing. Most men already know how to do that, and they do it very well. I am a Marine, a husband, a father, and a law enforcement officer. I'm also a recovering alcoholic. I spent most of my adult life around pressure. Some of it came with the job. Some of it came from being a provider. Some of it came from mistakes I made. And some of it came from carrying things I didn't know how to put down. This show is about practical recovery, not becoming soft, not avoiding responsibility, and not blaming everyone else for the way pressure has changed you. It's about recognizing survival mode before it starts making every decision for you. Today, we're talking directly to men. The men who are still working, still providing, still showing up. But underneath all that performance, they know something is beginning to change. They just can't quite place it. They're becoming shorter at home, more distant, more irritated, and more dependent on whatever gives them a few minutes of relief. That doesn't automatically make you weak. I say that a lot on this show. But it does mean the pressure is going somewhere. And today, we're going to talk honestly about where it's landing. So let's be real. A lot of men were taught how to carry pressure. Very few were taught what to do when carrying it starts changing who they are. We were taught to keep moving, solve the problem, protect the people around us. Don't complain, don't make your pain somebody else's problem. I get that a lot on a lot of the comments on my short form content. And I get it. There's honor in some of that. Believe me, I was there. The world needs dependable men. Families need men who can stand up under pressure, of course. But strength without recovery can turn into something very dangerous. You can become so proud of how much you can carry that you stop noticing what the weight is doing to you. That's the trap. The capable man often becomes the man nobody ever checks on because people assume he's fine because he keeps performing. And as we all know, what does fine stand for? Effed up, insecure, neurotic, and emotional. He meets the deadlines. He handles the emergency. He gets the kids where they need to go. He helps out around the house. He nods when someone asks if everything is good. Then he says the most overused lie in the male vocabulary. I'm fine. Sometimes I'm fine means I don't have the words. Sometimes it means I don't trust what will happen if I tell the truth. And sometimes it means I have no idea how bad this has gotten because I haven't stopped moving long enough to actually find out. Functioning can hide a lot. You can still go to work. You can train hard. You can laugh with your friends and look completely in control. Meanwhile, your patience is gone. Your sleep is wrecked. Your family has learned to read your mood before they ask you a question. That is not strength. That's pressure leaking through the seams. I know what that looks like. There were years when I believed being a good man meant carrying everything quietly and alone. I thought providing was the same thing as being present. I thought protecting my family meant never letting them see me struggle. I thought if I could keep earning, keep moving, keep solving problems, then I was doing my job. But my family didn't only experience my intentions. They experienced my tone, my distance, my defensiveness. They experienced the version of me that came home with nothing left in the tank. That's one of the hardest truths men have to face. You may be carrying the pressure for people you love, but they may still be carrying the impact. and intention doesn't erase impact. That doesn't mean you sit around drowning in shame. Shame rarely makes a man better. Usually it makes him quieter, angrier, or more desperate for relief. But responsibility matters. A man has to be willing to look at the people closest to him and ask, what has my pressure been costing you? That isn't weakness. That is courage with the lights on. Men often wait for collapse before admitting there's actually a problem. Believe me, I was there. If they're standing, they assume they're healthy. That's like ignoring the check engine light because the truck starts. Eventually, something expensive introduces itself. Survival mode does not announce itself with a breakdown. Sometimes it looks like becoming harder to reach, less patient, less interested in what's not urgent. You stop calling friends. You stop talking honestly. You stop noticing how tense your body feels because tension has become normal. Then you call it discipline. But if your version of strength requires everyone around you to walk carefully, that isn't strength working properly. That's a warning sign. A strong man doesn't have to ask whether he can carry the load. He should be asking whether carrying it in this way is making him dangerous, distant, or unavailable. If this is already hitting close to home, the conversation is over on my YouTube and my After Action Reset podcasts. Stay with me because next we're going to talk about where pressure leaks and why men often reach for relief instead of recovery. So let's get into it. Pressure always goes somewhere. A man can swallow it for a while. He can tighten his jaw, lower his head, and keep on moving. But pressure that never gets processed eventually looks for an exit. Maybe it comes out in your tone. Maybe you start drinking more than you planned. Maybe you go quiet and make your family guess which version of you walked through the door. Different escape routes, but the objective underneath them is often identical. The pressure has to go somewhere. For me, alcohol became one of those exits. I didn't always drink because something dramatic happened. Sometimes I drank because I was tired of carrying myself. And for a little while, the noise got quieter. The fear backed off. The shame stopped talking. And of course, in the moment, it felt like relief. But relief and recovery aren't the same thing. Relief changes how you feel at the moment. Recovery changes how you respond over time. And like I said, alcohol gave me a temporary exit. The problem was that every exit brought me back into the same building with more damage behind me. The pressure, of course, it was still there. Now, guess what? The consequences were there too. That is what men have to understand. Whatever you use to avoid the pressure may work for a few minutes. That's why you keep reaching for it, because it does its job temporarily. If it did nothing, you wouldn't do it, right? But temporary effectiveness is not the same as long-term health. A painkiller can help you finish the game. It can't repair the torn ligament. Eventually, you have to deal with what is actually injured, what part of you is hurt. A lot of men say they have an anger problem. I was definitely there and I said that many times. And of course, sometimes they do. But sometimes anger is simply the emotion they know how to access easiest. Anger feels active. Fear feels exposed. Control feels strong. Helplessness feels like failure. So a man says, I'm pissed off, when the deeper truth is, I'm scared I can't hold this together. He snaps at his wife because he feels inadequate. He gets impatient with his children because he has no margin left. Then he lies awake later, ashamed of the man they experienced. That shame creates more pressure. More pressure creates another reaction. Then he reaches for that relief mechanism again. That cycle can run for years while everyone around him keeps calling him functional. And here's the tough part. Your family doesn't live inside your intentions. They live inside your behavior. So you may intend to protect them. They experience your anger. You may intend to avoid burdening them with more problems. They experience your silence. You may believe you are carrying everything for them. But if they have to study your face before speaking, they're carrying something too. That doesn't mean you're a bad man. It doesn't mean you're broken. It means the load is showing up somewhere. And once you see it, you are responsible for what you do next. Understanding your survival mode doesn't excuse the way you speak. It doesn't erase broken trust. It doesn't make your wife responsible for managing your nervous system. Explanation is not an excuse. It's a starting point. Recovery begins when you can say, I understand why I became this way, and then add, but I'm still responsible for who experiences it. That is where men often get stuck. We either deny everything or condemn ourselves. We say nothing is wrong until the evidence is standing in the kitchen crying. Or we decide, I'll ruin everything, and use shame as another excuse to disappear. I am 100% freaking guilty of that. And of course, neither response is useful. Responsibility sounds different. Responsibility says, I've been carrying more than I admitted. It's been leaking into this house. You didn't cause it. And I'm going to get help changing how I handle it. Again, that's not weakness. That's called leadership. And not the kind that gives orders, the kind that goes first. There's another reason men avoid the truth. The truth may require change. If you admit the pressure is affecting you, you may have to call someone. You may have to stop drinking. You may have to sit in a room and say things that you've spent 20 years avoiding. You may have to pray without pretending you have everything under control. The last one there matters to me. Faith is not another way to act invincible. God already knows what you're carrying. You are not protecting him from the truth by staying silent. Sometimes surrender begins with a simple sentence. God, I can't keep doing this my way. That is not quitting. That's finally choosing the right chain of command. I needed faith. I needed a program of action. I needed a sponsor. I needed men who would tell me the truth when I was trying to negotiate with it. I didn't recover because I finally became strong enough to handle everything alone. I started recovering because I stopped worshiping self-sufficiency. A man can be disciplined and still need help. He can be courageous and still be afraid. He can love his family and still be hurting them at the same time. Two truths can stand in the same room. The question is whether he's honest enough to face both. So here's today's recovery rep. Ask yourself, where's the pressure leaking out of me right now? And don't give yourself the polished answer. Look at your tone, your habits, your distance. Then ask yourself, who is carrying the impact? And as always, do not judge the answer you get. I want you to attach a name to it. You can't repair what you refuse to identify, and you can't lead your family somewhere you're unwilling to go yourself. A man doesn't lose strength by honestly admitting the load is affecting him. He gains the chance to decide where that pressure goes next. If this conversation is putting words to something you've been carrying, subscribe on my YouTube channel and follow my After Action Reset podcasts. In the final part, I'm going to give you practical recovery repetitions for bringing the pressure home without unloading it on the people you care about and love the most. Recovery for men has to become practical. We need something we can practice every single day and something that doesn't take that much time. So the first recovery rep is a transition. Before you enter the house, I want you to stop, not for an hour, just for 2 minutes. You can even set your watch. Put the phone down, unclench your jaw, relax the muscles in your face, drop your shoulders, take one slow breath, and ask, what am I about to carry through that front door? Maybe it's frustration from work. Maybe it's fear about finances. Maybe it's exhaustion that you've been pretending is discipline. I want you to name it before it starts naming everyone else as the problem. Then decide how you want to enter. You're interrupting the automatic handoff between work pressure and family impact. The second recovery rep is honest language. A lot of men have two settings. I'm fine, and they have an emotional flashbang. Now, there is useful territory between those two. Try saying, for instance, I'm overloaded and I don't want to take it out on you. Or something else that's very simple. I need 20 minutes to regulate and I will come back. That final one matters. Space without return time feels like abandonment. I talk about this one in one of my latest short form episodes. Regulation includes coming back when you said you would. Remember that. If you say you're coming back after a specific amount of time, show up. The third recovery rep is repair. You're still going to get it wrong sometimes. We all do. I do it a lot. Recovery doesn't make you flawless. It makes you faster at recognizing damage and more willing to clean it up. A real repair sounds like, hey, I was under pressure, but the way I spoke to you wasn't okay. Not courtroom presentation explaining why your behavior was understandable. Your family doesn't need a closing argument. They need responsibility. So apologize. Name what happened. Ask yourself, what did it cost me? Then practice a better response. That's how trust slowly begins to return. Not through promises made after every explosion, through consistency between them. The fourth recovery rep is support. Men do need other men. You need at least one man who knows when your answer is complete garbage. Someone who can ask, how are you really doing, man? And sit there and wait for the truth. Now, that may be a sponsor, could be a therapist, a pastor, a trusted friend. Recovery requires outside voices. You need people who respect your strength but are not impressed by your excuses. The fifth recovery rep is learning to receive peace. Some men don't know how to rest without feeling guilty. I was definitely part of that crowd. They sit down and immediately think of what they should be fixing next. They hear quiet and start searching for the next problem. For them, oftentimes, calm can feel suspicious. That's called survival mode. Recovery means practicing moments where nothing is wrong and refusing to manufacture an emergency. So, sit with your family without reaching for your phone. I often, still to this day, will find myself sometimes, my wife will walk downstairs, engage in a conversation with me, or my kids will come up and be like, hey, Dad, guess what? And then she'll start explaining a story to me, and I'll have my phone in my hand. I'm pretty darn quick to it nowadays. Maybe 2-3 seconds into it, I'm like, oh, I'm still looking at this thing. I'll put it down, shift my entire body, open shoulders, right? Dropped arms, and eye-to-eye contact. So sit with your family, sit with your kids. Put the phone down. Pray without demanding 10 solutions. Sometimes be still long enough to remember that your worth is not measured by your output. Scripture says, be still and know that I am God. For man trained to move, solve, and control, being still can feel harder than just another mission. But stillness isn't abandoning responsibility. It's surrendering the fantasy that everything depends on you. The world doesn't need weaker men, that's for sure. It needs men who understand strength is being under control. Men who can protect without controlling. Keep the grit, keep the discipline, but stop using those strengths as camouflage for what is really falling apart inside you. The objective is to carry pressure without turning the people you love into collateral damage. So do an after-action reset review tonight. Ask yourself, what pressure am I carrying? Where is it leaking from? Who's experiencing the impact? What am I reaching for to get relief? What is one recovery rep I can practice before the day ends? Maybe the rep is telling your wife the truth or calling a friend before you start to isolate. Recovery isn't rebuilding your entire life by Friday. It's the next honest decision, then another one tomorrow. Practice patterns can be practiced differently. So again, you're not broken. You have simply adapted over time. Maybe you adapted to combat or a home where weakness was punished. But what helped you survive one season of your life may be damaging the life you are building right now. You don't honor your past by remaining trapped inside of it. You honor it by becoming a better man today, a stronger husband, a more present father, a man whose children don't have to recover from the pressure he refused to face. That is tough to hear. I get it. And I might piss some people off, but I'm here to tell the truth. But it's better you hear it now than 10 years from now. So don't wait for a divorce or the day your child stops coming to you with questions. You don't need a catastrophe to earn the right to recover. You can begin because you are tired of living braced for impact all the time. You can begin because God is asking you to tell the truth. You can begin because the people you love deserve your presence, not just your provision. The pressure has to go somewhere. Let it go into honesty, accountability. Don't keep handing it to your family in pieces and calling that strength. Recovery isn't pretending you can carry more. It's learning how to stop making the people you love carry the impact. If this episode helped you recognize where pressure is leaking, subscribe to the After Action Reset on YouTube. And again, come over to the podcasts. I'm up on all of them, and follow. And if you know you're living in survival mode but don't know where to begin, download the free 7-day survival mode reset PDF. It's in my beacons link, which is also in my bio and further down here in the description. I also have several other PDFs that are aimed at trying to help you learn small recovery reps throughout your day. It gives you 7 practical recovery reps to help you recognize the pattern, stabilize the pressure, and begin becoming available again. Share this with another man who carries everything and tells everyone that he's fine. Not to call him out, to remind him he doesn't have to carry it alone. This is the After Action Reset. Remember, recovery is trainable. Strength is honest. And the strongest thing a man may ever do is stop pretending the pressure is not changing him. I'll see you on the next one.